In the heart of the Galactic Empire, high above the ruins of what was once a mighty civilization, Vorus, the High Counselor, gathered the council. The atmosphere was thick with despair. As he surveyed the faces before him, a blend of fear and disbelief filled the chamber. Their fleets were shattered, and their worlds lay under siege, remnants of the hubris that had blinded them to the true nature of humanity. Vorus began recounting their first encounter with Earth. 50 cycles ago, he said, his voice steady but tinged with regret, we encountered a primitive race confined to a single world called Earth. We dismissed them as weak, with their crude technology and laughable weapons. Our arrogance led us to believe they posed no threat. The council murmured in agreement, recalling the ease with which they had expected to conquer Earth. Yet, as Vorus continued, a flicker of doubt crept in. We underestimated the human spirit. They rallied under Commander Jeffrey Kennedy, whose unorthodox strategies caught us off guard at Proxima Centauri. His surprise attack crippled our fleet, turning what we thought would be an easy conquest into a harrowing defeat. As Vorus spoke, memories flooded the council members' minds. They recalled the fierce battles where human ingenuity and grit shone through. The Avon Kishi delegate, always eager for revenge, insisted on a swift counterattack, while the cautious Scans urged a more measured approach. Vorus's fist slammed against the podium, his voice rising above the chaos. Our arrogance has blinded us. Centuries of dominance have dulled our senses. In contrast, humanity has been forged in hardship. Where we saw primitives, they saw potential. They wield creativity as their weapon, while we relied on brute force. The truth settled in, a heavy weight. This conflict was more than a military defeat. It threatened their very identity and destiny among the stars. As the debate raged on, Vorus knew their next move could shape the galaxy's future. In the heart of the Galactic Empire, whispers of the past echoed through the grand halls of Imperial Center. The once mighty empire now felt the weight of its own arrogance, the consequences of underestimating humanity bearing down on its leaders. As Captain Zorax navigated the corridors, he could sense the tension in the air. He had witnessed firsthand the humans' tenacity, but the reality of their potential was just beginning to unfold. Zorax had joined the Empire's military decades ago, driven by the promise of glory and conquest. The tales of previous victories over lesser species had fueled his ambition. However, the human conflict had shattered that perception. He recalled the Battle of Proxima Centauri, where the clever tactics employed by Jeffrey Kennedy had turned the tide. The memory of human ships darting through space like wasps, striking with precision, still haunted him. As he entered the command center, a projection of Earth loomed large on the main screen. The swirling blue and green planet was a stark reminder of the enemy they had sought to conquer. Zorax's first officer, Krytox, a Loth-Sixian with a keen intellect, studied the data before them. Captain, our intelligence reports indicate that the humans are accelerating their technological advancements. Their project, Prometheus, is rumored to involve harnessing energy sources we have yet to comprehend. Zorax nodded, absorbing the information. The humans had transformed their initial vulnerability into an advantage, using their creativity to push boundaries. This was no longer a simple conquest, it was a battle of wits. "What do we know about Prometheus?" he asked, his tone urgent. Krytox tapped on the console, bringing up a series of diagrams and reports. "It appears to be an energy project focused on creating sustainable power sources. However, the specifics are elusive. We've intercepted some communications, but they seem to be encrypted. We need a closer look." Zorax's mind raced. If the humans could harness a new energy source, it could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Prepare a covert mission to infiltrate their research facilities. We need to understand their progress and determine if they pose an even greater threat. Meanwhile, on Earth, Jeffrey Kennedy was strategizing with his team. The scars of previous battles have forged a bond among the humans, uniting them against the common enemy. They were no longer the isolated primitives the Empire had fought. They were a coalition of creativity, resilience, and determination. In the war room, maps and holographic displays illuminated the room as Kennedy paced, his blue eyes reflecting the urgency of their situation. "We've been given a second chance," he said, addressing his assembled officers. "The Empire underestimates us at its peril. We must not only defend our world, but prepare for a counterstrike that will shake their confidence to its core." One of his generals, a seasoned veteran named Marcus Orwell, stepped forward. "Commander, we need to bolster our defenses. If they send another fleet, we cannot afford to be caught off guard like before." Kennedy nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We'll enhance our communication networks and establish better early warning systems. But we must also strike at their weaknesses. The Empire's arrogance is their Achilles heel. If we can expose their vulnerabilities, we can turn the tide in our favor." As plans unfolded, Kennedy knew they needed to counter the Empire's technological advances. Humanity had a spirit that could not be extinguished, and that spirit would serve as their greatest weapon. Back in the Galactic Empire, Admiral Zala, a cunning strategist with a reputation for brilliance, pondered her next move. She had been observing the developments closely, recognizing the humans as more than mere obstacles. They were a puzzle, and she was determined to solve it. During a clandestine meeting with her most trusted officers, she outlined her plan. "We must understand the human psyche," she began, her voice low but confident. "Their ability to innovate stems from their unpredictability. We cannot fight them using the same methods that have worked against other species." One of her officers, a grizzled veteran named Tarek, raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting we infiltrate their ranks?" Zala's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Precisely. We will send a team disguised as refugees, integrating into their society. By understanding their motivations and weaknesses, we can manipulate them from within." The officers exchanged glances, some skeptical, but Zala's reputation as a tactician had won them over. They knew that understanding the enemy was as crucial as defeating them in battle. As preparations began for the covert operation, the humans on Earth remained unaware of the looming threat. They were busy fortifying their defenses and developing their technology, inspired by the necessity of survival. Weeks passed, and the humans started to see the fruits of their labor. New alliances formed, and advancements in weaponry and energy production surged. In labs filled with bright minds, ideas flowed like electricity. Creativity became a currency, and it united them more than ever. Commander Kennedy stood before his team, excitement evident in his voice. "Our innovations will not only defend us, they will allow us to strike back. We are no longer a primitive species. We are the architects of our destiny, and it is time the Empire learned that they have awakened a sleeping giant." Unbeknownst to them, Zala's team was already on the move, blending seamlessly into human society. They arrived in New Jakarta, a bustling metropolis filled with life and energy. As they stepped onto the crowded streets, they were struck by the vibrant culture surrounding them. Commander Rexus led the infiltration team, his Sixian features masked by the guise of refugees. His eyes scanned the environment, absorbing the intricate details of human life. They had settled into a community that thrived on cooperation and innovation. Humans worked together, sharing knowledge, ideas, and resources. Rexus marveled at the resilience of the human spirit. They were a species that had risen from the ashes of adversity, constantly adapting and overcoming challenges. It was a quality that he had underestimated. The team quickly established themselves, gaining the trust of the locals. They shared their story of fleeing a war-torn planet, and the humans, ever sympathetic, welcomed them with open arms. Rexus observed the camaraderie among the humans, their laughter echoing in the air as they shared meals and stories. One evening, Rexus found himself seated around a table with a group of locals. They exchanged tales of their lives, and he listened intently as they spoke of their struggles, dreams, and aspirations. Their passion was infectious, igniting a spark of curiosity within him. "What drives you to keep fighting?" one of the humans asked, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. Rexus hesitated, pondering how to respond. "We seek to protect our home, to ensure a future for those we love," he replied, the words resonating with him more than he anticipated. The humans nodded, understanding reflected in their expressions. They, too, were driven by love and hope, uniting against a common threat. In that moment, Rexus felt a shift within himself. The humans were not the simplistic beings he had been taught to view them as. They were complex, determined, and unyielding. Back in the Galactic Empire, Zorax received reports of Rexus's progress. As he reviewed the data, he felt a growing unease. The humans were adapting faster than anticipated, and their innovations were beginning to blur the lines between their technology and the Empire's. "Captain," Krytox interrupted, "we have received intelligence that they are developing a new class of weaponry. If we don't act soon, we risk losing any advantage we have." Zorax slammed his fist on the table, frustration boiling over. "We must accelerate our plans. Prepare the fleet for a decisive strike against Earth. We cannot allow them to challenge us any longer." The stakes had never been higher. The Galactic Empire, once a symbol of dominance, now stood on the brink of disaster, facing an enemy that had become more formidable with each passing day. The fate of civilizations hung in the balance, and the true battle for survival was only just beginning. As the Empire geared up for its next move, Commander Kennedy and his team were unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. They were focused on fortifying their defenses and preparing for the inevitable confrontation, fueled by the knowledge that they were fighting for more than just survival. They were fighting for their identity, their spirit, and their future. The conflict that lay ahead would challenge everything they had come to believe about themselves and their place in the galaxy. Humanity was no longer just a single world in the vastness of space. It was a force to be reckoned with, a beacon of hope against the encroaching darkness. And as the sun set over Earth, casting golden rays across the landscape, both the Empire and humanity braced themselves for the reckoning that would determine their destinies. As the Galactic Empire prepared for its next assault on Earth, tensions ran high among its ranks. The command center buzzed with urgency as officers reviewed strategies and updated intelligence reports. Captain Zorax, now acutely aware of humanity's unexpected ingenuity, stood at the forefront, determined to ensure that their upcoming strike would not be a repeat of past failures. Admiral Zola's intelligence indicates that the humans are ramping up their defenses. Zorax announced to the assembled officers, "We must adapt our tactics. We can no longer rely on sheer numbers alone. We must strike at their heart, their morale." Zola, a fierce strategist, nodded in agreement. "We have observed their communication networks. They rely heavily on collaboration, which means if we can disrupt their unity, we can weaken them. We'll use psychological warfare." Psychological warfare. One of the officers, a young lieutenant, questioned, "Are you suggesting we instill fear and doubt among them?" "Exactly," Zola replied, her mandibles clicking with determination. "We will target their key leaders, spread disinformation, and exploit their fears. Humanity thrives on hope, but hope can be shattered." Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander Jeffrey Kennedy sensed an imminent threat. The increased frequency of Imperial ship sightings around the solar system hinted at an impending invasion. He gathered his inner circle, knowing that the time for preparation was slipping away. "We need to prepare our forces for a large-scale conflict," Kennedy said, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "The Empire is relentless, and if they strike again, we must be ready." General Marcus Orwell stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Commander, our new defenses are solid, but we need more than just shields and weapons. We need a plan to counter their psychological tactics. If they try to sow doubt among us, we must respond with unity." Kennedy nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Let's gather our leaders from every corner of Earth. We need a coalition of our finest minds and hearts. Together, we'll craft a narrative that reinforces our resolve." Days turned into a whirlwind of activity. Leaders from various nations converged, bringing with them their unique strengths, ideas, and experiences. In a large conference hall, the atmosphere was electric, charged with a shared sense of purpose. As they discussed strategies, a young scientist named Dr. Elena Torres presented her research on the Empire's ships. "We've been analyzing their technology," she began, her voice filled with excitement. "If we can develop a weapon that disrupts their shields, we can level the playing field." The room buzzed with intrigue as she detailed her findings. Ideas bounced around like sparks, igniting new possibilities. It was a testament to the collaborative spirit that defined humanity, turning crisis into opportunity. Meanwhile, in the shadows of New Jakarta, Commander Rexus, the infiltrator from the Empire, had begun to bond with the locals. His initial mission had been to gather intelligence, but as he experienced the warmth and tenacity of the human spirit, he found himself conflicted. During quiet moments, he would sit with his new friends, sharing stories of their pasts. They told him of their dreams, their families, and their hopes for the future. Each story deepened his understanding of what it meant to be human. One evening, while sharing a meal, one of the locals, a mechanic named Arun, turned to Rexus. "What do you think makes us fight so fiercely for our home? We're not the strongest or the fastest, but we have heart." Rexus paused, the question resonating deeply within him. "You have a fire inside you," he replied, his tone contemplative. "A drive to protect what you love. It's admirable." As the days went by, Rexus found himself increasingly drawn to the humans. Their resilience was undeniable, and he began to question the teachings of the Empire. The mission that had once felt so clear now blurred in the face of humanity's spirit. Back in the Galactic Empire, Zorax received word of human advancements. Reports indicated that they had begun testing a new weapon, and the fear of humanity's retaliation seeped into the command center. "We cannot let them get the upper hand," Zorax declared, his frustration palpable. "We must act now." Admiral Zala, ever calculating, raised an eyebrow. "A preemptive strike could provoke them. They are unpredictable, and we risk rallying their forces further." Zorax considered her words, but felt the weight of urgency pressing down on him. "Then we must choose our targets wisely. We will hit their key installations and disable their communication networks. We strike when they least expect it." As the plans solidified, the stage was set for an impending conflict. Both sides were bracing for a showdown that would test their resolve, their courage, and their very identities. On Earth, Commander Kennedy stood before his assembled coalition, his voice steady and resolute. "This is our moment. The Empire thinks they can intimidate us into submission, but we will show them the power of unity. We will demonstrate that humanity is not a force to be trifled with." As cheers erupted from the crowd, Kennedy's heart swelled with pride. The collective strength of humanity surged through him. He knew that the battle ahead would not just be fought with weapons, but with the very essence of their humanity. In the days leading up to the confrontation, the atmosphere on Earth crackled with energy. People rallied together, sharing stories, inspiring one another, and preparing for the battle that loomed. Dr. Elena Torres' team worked tirelessly to finalize their new weapon, while Orwell and Kennedy coordinated the defenses. The day of reckoning arrived, and the skies darkened as Imperial ships descended upon Earth. Their formidable fleets loomed ominously, ready to unleash devastation. Yet, instead of fear, a fierce determination surged through the hearts of the defenders. From the command center in New Jakarta, Kennedy monitored the situation. "Stay calm and focused. Remember what we stand for," he urged his team. "We are fighting for our future, for our families, for the very essence of humanity." As the first waves of Imperial ships breached Earth's atmosphere, the humans activated their defenses. Missiles launched, bright streaks cutting through the sky, striking the enemy vessels. Explosions erupted, illuminating the darkness, and the battle began in earnest. The Galactic Empire was met with unexpected resistance. The humans fought back with a fierce ferocity that surprised Zorax and Zala. As they watched from the command ship, Zala's eyes narrowed. "They are not retreating. They are rallying. We underestimated them, Zorax muttered, feeling the tide shift against them. Their resolve is stronger than we anticipated. On the ground, the humans coordinated their attacks with precision. The new weapon, a disruptor designed by Dr. Taurus, proved effective, incapacitating several Imperial ships. Cheers erupted as the tide began to turn. Yet, amidst the chaos, Rexus found himself grappling with conflicting loyalties. As the battle raged on, he had an opportunity to strike at the heart of the human coalition. But watching them fight, seeing the camaraderie and determination, filled him with doubt. Was this really the enemy he had been trained to destroy? During a pivotal moment in the battle, as Kennedy's forces pushed forward, Rexus made a decision that would change everything. He activated his comms and sent a message to Commander Kennedy, risking exposure. I have crucial information about the Empire's plans. They're regrouping for a counterattack. You need to prepare. Kennedy, receiving the unexpected transmission, felt a surge of adrenaline. Who is this? How do I know I can trust you? I'm Commander Rexus of the Galactic Empire, he replied, urgency lacing his voice. I've been embedded among your people. I can help you. You must trust me. The silence stretched for a moment before Kennedy responded. If you're telling the truth, then we need your knowledge. We'll coordinate a safe extraction for you, but we need to move quickly. As Rexus made his way to rendezvous with the human forces, he was struck by the realization that he was choosing humanity over the Empire. The decision had been born from witnessing the spirit and resilience of the humans around him. They were not the monstrous beings he had been led to believe. They were fighting for their survival, just as he would have for his own. Meanwhile, the Empire was regrouping, and Zorax could feel the pressure mounting. We cannot let this stand, he shouted, rallying his officers. Reinforce the front lines. We must crush this rebellion before it spreads. As the battle continued, the ground shook with the force of their clash. Explosions lit the sky, and the sound of blaster fire filled the air. Both sides fought valiantly, but it was clear that humanity was rallying. As Rexus reached the human lines, he felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. He had chosen to stand with them, not against them. He briefed Kennedy and his team, providing them with insights into the Empire's strategies and weaknesses. Thank you for trusting me, Rexus said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. We can win this if we work together. With Rex's information, Kennedy formulated a plan. We'll use their own tactics against them. We'll create diversions and strike where they least expect it. Together, we can turn the tide. As the battle raged on, the humans executed their newfound strategy with precision. They launched coordinated attacks that exploited the weaknesses in the Imperial fleet. The air was electric with determination, and the tides of war began to shift in humanity's favor. Zorax, watching from his command ship, felt the realization sink in. They're adapting faster than we can respond, he muttered, frustration boiling within him. We must change our approach. As the battle reached its climax, the sound of cheers erupted from the human ranks. The fight for Earth was far from over, but the resolve and ingenuity of humanity had been proven. They were not merely fighting against an empire, they were fighting for their existence. In that moment, both sides felt the weight of the conflict they had chosen. The Galactic Empire, so focused on domination, had underestimated humanity's spirit, and humanity, driven by their unwavering hope and determination, stood ready to face whatever came next. As dusk fell, the echoes of battle faded into a tense silence. The outcome remained uncertain, but the fight for survival had forged an unbreakable bond among the humans. They had found strength in unity, and they would face whatever challenges lay ahead together. As dawn broke over Earth, the atmosphere crackled with a sense of anticipation. The battle from the previous day had left both sides wary, but the resolve of humanity burned bright. In the command center, Commander Jeffrey Kennedy gathered his team to discuss their next move. Yesterday was a turning point, but we can't let our guard down, Kennedy said, his eyes scanning the faces of his trusted leaders. We've gained valuable intelligence from Commander Rexus, but we need to consolidate our forces and prepare for their counterattack. General Marcus Orwell nodded, leaning over a holographic map that displayed the current positions of both their forces and the Imperial fleet. We've inflicted serious damage on their ships, but they're regrouping. We need to hit them again before they can recover. Dr. Elena Torres, still buzzing from the adrenaline of the previous day's victory, interjected. We should focus on developing our disruptor technology further. If we can refine it, we could take out their flagship. Without it, their command structure will crumble. Kennedy considered her suggestion. That's our goal. But we also need to disrupt their supply lines and communications. If we can create chaos within their ranks, we can capitalize on it. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship of the Galactic Empire, Admiral Zala paced angrily as reports flooded in. The humans had proven unexpectedly resilient, and the counteroffensive was faltering. She turned to Zorax, who was analyzing the battlefield from his command station. We underestimated their adaptability, Zorax, Zala snapped. You assured me that they would crumble at our feet. Zorax clenched his fists, frustration boiling over. I believed they would, Admiral. But their spirit, it's unlike anything we've encountered. We need a new strategy, one that leverages our advantages. As the two strategists argued, Commander Rexus, who had fully integrated into the human coalition, worked alongside Dr. Torres and her team. His insights proved invaluable, as he provided crucial information on Imperial tactics and weaknesses. Zala has been focusing on psychological warfare, Rexus explained as they huddled around a workbench cluttered with tools and parts. But she has underestimated the importance of morale. If we can continue to inspire hope among your people, we can wear them down. Elena looked up, her eyes gleaming with determination. Then let's create a series of broadcasts, sharing stories of human resilience and innovation. We can counter their propaganda and strengthen our unity. Rexus nodded, impressed by her passion. That's a brilliant idea. If we can get the message out to every corner of the globe, it will serve as a rallying cry. With newfound urgency, the team set to work. They crafted messages that highlighted the stories of everyday heroes, individuals who had risen to the occasion in the face of adversity. These broadcasts would remind humanity of their collective strength and resolve. As the day unfolded, the airwaves buzzed with tales of courage, ingenuity, and hope. Families shared their experiences, highlighting how they had banded together to fight for their homes. The messages resonated deeply, rekindling a sense of purpose among the population. Back on the battlefield, the Imperial forces began to mobilize for their counterattack. Zorax had devised a plan to strike at key human installations, aiming to instill fear and uncertainty. As the ships assembled for the assault, he felt the weight of his choices. He had to prove himself to Zala, but the cost was beginning to feel too high. The human coalition, now more unified than ever, received word of the impending attack. Kennedy gathered his leaders once again, determination etched on his face. We know the Empire is coming for us. We need to be ready. Orwell pointed at the holographic map. They're targeting major cities. If we can mobilize our forces to protect those locations, we can turn their aggression back on them. We must be proactive. As the discussions intensified, Rexus felt a swell of pride. The humans had faced seemingly insurmountable odds and yet continued to rise. We need to deploy our disruptors strategically. If we can take out their communication lines first, we can isolate their forces. As plans solidified, Kennedy looked around the room. We are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for the future of humanity. We have already proven that we can stand against the Empire. Now we must show them the full strength of our resolve. When the time came, the sky darkened with the silhouettes of Imperial ships as they descended toward their targets. Earth's defenses were ready, the coalition poised for action. As the first shots rang out, the cacophony of battle filled the air once more. Rexus, now firmly aligned with the humans, coordinated their defenses with skill and precision. Hold the line. Aim for their lead ships. We can't let them break through. The initial clash was fierce, blast of fire illuminating the darkened skies. The humans fought with a combination of strategy and unyielding spirit, pushing back against the Imperial forces. Their disruptors were effective, causing chaos within the enemy ranks. Zorax watched the chaos unfold with a mix of frustration and disbelief. "They're fighting with a desperation we didn't anticipate," he muttered. "We need to regroup and reassess." As the battle wore on, Zala felt the tide beginning to shift. "Our forces are faltering. If we don't strike decisively, we risk losing everything," she warned. "We must send in our ground troops to secure key locations." On the ground, Commander Kennedy and General Orwell coordinated the defenses, urging their troops to maintain their positions. "We have to hold them back," Orwell shouted over the din of battle. "Focus on the flanks. Do not let them encircle us." The human forces held their ground, but the Imperial troops were relentless. The two factions clashed in fierce hand-to-hand combat, each side fighting for their vision of the future. As the battle raged, Rexus felt a surge of determination. He fought alongside the humans, witnessing their unwavering spirit in action. His previous loyalties to the Empire felt like a distant memory. He was now part of something greater, a fight for survival, for hope, and for future. In the midst of the chaos, a pivotal moment arrived. A group of Imperial soldiers breached the perimeter and aimed to capture a crucial communications relay. Rexus, seeing the threat, shouted to his comrades, "We can't let them take that relay. If they do, we'll be cut off." With a newfound sense of purpose, he led a group of defenders in a daring counterattack. The fierce determination in his heart drove him forward as they fought to reclaim their critical asset. As they clashed, he could hear the echoes of humanity's stories fueling his resolve. The courage displayed by his fellow defenders reminded him of the warmth he had felt during his time among them. Each soldier, each civilian fighting for their homes, represented everything worth protecting. Meanwhile, Zorax faced a difficult decision aboard the flagship. His admiration for the human spirit was growing, but loyalty to the Empire's mission still weighed heavily on him. He understood that the only way to gain control of the situation was to change tactics once more. "Deploy the orbital bombardment," Zorax commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. "We will strike fear into their hearts and force them to surrender." As the order was issued, the Imperial ships positioned themselves for the bombardment. The humans on the ground looked up, dread filling their hearts as they realized the implications of the move. Kennedy's eyes widened as he observed the ships preparing their weaponry. "They're going to bombard us from orbit," he shouted. "We need to evacuate the civilians. We can't let them get hurt." With urgency, the coalition sprang into action, working to evacuate as many people as possible from the targeted areas. As the bombardment began, explosions lit the sky, shaking the very ground beneath them. The destruction was immense, and the air filled with dust and debris. In the chaos, Rexus fought to rally his team. "We must hold the line," he shouted, pushing forward despite the overwhelming odds. "We've come too far to back down now." The determination of the human coalition shone through even in the face of devastation. They fought fiercely, drawing strength from their shared stories, the very essence of humanity that had sparked their uprising. Zorax, watching the devastation from his command ship, felt a pang of guilt. The destruction they were unleashing was not what he had envisioned. As he surveyed the battlefield, he realized that he was no longer fighting just against the humans. He was fighting against a force that stood for hope and resilience. As the battle raged on, the tide began to shift once again. The spirit of humanity had proven more powerful than any weapon. Rexus, alongside his new allies, pushed back against the encroaching Imperial forces. The determination in the eyes of the humans around him inspired him to fight harder. Together, they rallied against the onslaught, determined to reclaim their home and their future. The sound of their battle cries resonated through the air, a testament to their unwavering spirit. As the dust settled, the Imperial forces began to retreat. The humans, battered but not broken, had held their ground against an overwhelming enemy. In the aftermath of the battle, as both sides surveyed the wreckage, Zorax made a choice that would alter the course of the conflict. He stood before his officers, a resolute look on his face. "We must rethink our approach," he said. "The humans have shown us their strength. Perhaps we can find a way to coexist instead of conquer." But the battle was far from over. As the dust settled, both sides prepared for what would come next. The Galactic Empire had yet to fully comprehend the resilience of humanity, and the stakes were higher than ever. The aftermath of the battle left both the human coalition and the Imperial forces reeling. Commander Kennedy stood with General Orwell, surveying the damage. "We gained ground, but the Empire won't back down easily," he said, determination etched on his face. Meanwhile, aboard the Imperial flagship, Admiral Zala seethed with frustration. "Our forces were humiliated," she declared. "Zorax, you must regain control and crush their spirit once and for all." Zorax, wrestling with the implications of his decisions, felt the weight of their losses. "Admiral, the humans' tenacity is unlike anything we've faced. Perhaps we should consider negotiations instead of further bloodshed." Zala scoffed, but a flicker of doubt crossed her eyes. Negotiations with them? Back on Earth, Dr. Taurus and Rexus worked tirelessly to strengthen the coalition. "We need to solidify our alliances and prepare for any response," Rexus urged. "If we can convince more alien factions to join us, we might turn the tide permanently." In a surprising turn of events, Zorax reached out to the human coalition, proposing a meeting. The urgency in his message conveyed that the Empire was at a crossroads. Kennedy hesitated, but recognized the potential for peace. As they gathered in a neutral zone, tensions ran high. Zorax faced the humans, his demeanor calm yet firm. "We've seen the resilience of your people. Perhaps there is a path forward that doesn't end in annihilation." Kennedy responded cautiously. "If we're to trust you, the Empire must acknowledge its missteps. We can't continue this cycle of violence." As discussions unfolded, both sides grappled with their pasts and their hopes for the future. The fragile alliance hinged on a shared desire to break the cycle of conflict, but deep-rooted mistrust lingered. The fate of humanity, and possibly the galaxy, hung in the balance as they stood on the brink of a new chapter.